The class was Introduction to College Writing. The topic was write a compare and contrast essay. It was to be in APA format, and I clearly explained the penalty for nonconformity. One of my students, a weathered Chicago police officer, came up to me and said, my topic is going to be that it's more difficult to grow up today than it was in the 70s. My response was, what? You can't, that doesn't, why would you want to write about that? So this is an issue that I come into a lot with a lot of my students. They seem to have an apparent unwillingness to distinguish fact from opinion, or more specifically, fact from their opinions. They pretty much got it nailed for everyone else. And so here I am talking about APA format, and I don't think they quite get or really buy what the point is. This whole idea that someone else's work can actually verify your opinion and that it needs to be cited. But beyond that, I begin to wonder, this whole attitude of got it all figured out, how does that affect their creativity? I mean, if they're not curious, how do they fill that void with creation? Now, this is not a new topic. Opinion and fact have been running neck and neck for quite some time. I like to believe that fact still has an edge, but thanks to the late boost of the internet, opinion is running a close second and third. But we all know who the real culprit is, in my opinion. It's the 24-hour news cycle, upon which I blame everything. And if you pick the right dealer, you can get a 24-hour dosage of your own opinion reflected back to you and present it as common sense, as anyone would think this, right? Anyone with any sense. Now, during one of my lectures or rants, one of my students just threw her arms up and said, well, I guess I just don't know anything, do I? Now, I didn't want to debate that, but it did make me think for a moment. Maybe I'm just taking my own opinion and shoving it down their throats. I mean, maybe it's not that simple. Maybe it's the difference between truth and fact, and they can have a truth, but it's not a fact, and maybe I'm wrong about this. Nah. Actually, what it is that they are students, and they need to know how to travel the journey from thesis to fact. They need to know all the steps they need to get there. And they need to respect that if they're going to be in academia, because they are students after all. So what I did was I took some time out and I said, we're going to take half a class and we're going to explore 3 questions. So I threw out half the curriculum for that day because I'm a rock and roll teacher. I brought in my guitar. I don't have a guitar, I just made that up. So question number 1. How can you debunk your own theory? Let's just pretend for a second that your theory has some holes in it. I know, crazy talk. And I just want you to just think, what could not be true about this theory? So we discussed that. We talked about where can you, if you take yourself out of it, what would you need to be true in order to make this true? So we explored that. They had to do it to their own theories. They had to completely rip them to shreds. The second question was, for whom can you speak? Now, we're always throwing around, well, I think most people, and I think common sense would say. And you know what? That's fine if you want to say that, as long as you know that you're lying. Because you haven't talked to most people, and even if you did, you didn't ask them that question. But it is possible to speak for others if you do the research, if you do the legwork, and actually let research play a role in that. The third question is, what does it mean to concede that your world is small? And I don't mean small as, you know Steve? I mean, even if you knew 50 Steves, you are not an expert in the human experience. You're not even an expert in Steves, really. What you have to do is make your world bigger, actively make it. Waking up successfully every day for 30 years does not mean that you know more about the world. Experience happens to you, but you have to learn. You have to be an active learner. So did I revolutionize teaching and change the world? Not so much. However, some of their citations, they got more just tactically wrong. You know, they got the whole idea behind it, but the question was, again, where will you put periods and things of that sort? The discussion in the class became more around admitting that what they were saying was actually an opinion, challenging opinions, mostly mine, and questions on how to verify information came up quite a bit. So I want to leave you with this quote that really guided me through this. It is through the exploration of fallacy that we explore the truth. And it's Actually, I just made that up. But I guess the point is, or what this is indicative of, is that even though everyone else's opinion is not a fact, mine are pretty airtight. Thank you.